Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Finance and Governance Committee for May 28, 2024. Madam Clerk, roll call and posting of the agenda.
Member Turan?
Here.
Chair Zaragoza.
Here.
We have a quorum. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on May 21st, 2024.
Thank you. Please join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Okay, item B, Madam Clerk, any public comments not on the agenda or either here or online or Zoom?
Chair Zaragoza, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, then item C is consent. This is the City Clerk Department approval of the minutes. Recommendation that the Finance and Governance Committee approve the minutes for May 14, 2024, regular meeting. Any concerns? Motion to approve.
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. Please vote.
Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you. Our next item, item D1, Public Works Department fiscal year 2024-25 special tax levy for community facility district numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 2000-3. Recommendation of City Council acting as a legislative body for the community facilities district CFD number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 2000-3. 1, adopt a resolution setting special tax rate for CFD number 1, Westport, Mandalay Bay for fiscal year 24-25. And 2, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate CFD number 2, Westport at Mandalay Bay for fiscal year 24-25. 3, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate CFD number 3, Sea Bridge at Mandalay Bay for fiscal year 24-25. 4, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate for CFD number 4, Sea Bridge at Mandalay Bay for fiscal year 24-25. 5, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate for CFD number 5, Sea River Park for fiscal year 24-25. 6, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate for CFD number 8, Sakioka Farm Business Park for fiscal year 24-25. 7, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate for CFD number 9, North Shore at Mandalay Bay for fiscal year 24-25. Number 8, adopt a resolution setting a special tax rate for CFD number 2000-3, Oxnard Boulevard, Highway 1, interchange for fiscal year 24-25. And 9, authorize a public works director or his designee to execute an agreement for billing, a direct assessment for the Ventura County Auditor's Controller to provide the services of placement of direct assessment on the Ventura County Special Secured Tax Roll. And of course, this was under Measure M, a pre-recorded presentation. And we have Mr. Michael Wolf, or okay.
Good evening. It's Anthony Miller, Interim Special Districts Manager.
So, Mr. Miller, anything else that we should know on this CFDs or anything that you can add to?
Nothing that I would add to, in addition to what's included in the staff report, outside of that the budget process for setting these special taxes is done in a collaboration with either neighborhood councils or HOAs through the community where possible, except for in the case of, for example, number 8 and number 9, which it's a business park, and number 9, which there are no residents yet. But outside of that, this is a collaborative process.
And they're all working with us, of course, you know.
I would say some communities work better with us than others. But we try our best to try and go through every single scenario as we can, going through the process and setting these levy rates.
So before we go to Councilmember Turan, do we have any speakers on this item?
Chair Zaragoza, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Council members, any questions?
No questions, Mayor. I just want to thank you, Mr. Miller, for your comments just now, just summarizing and bringing this forward. I will confirm just as far as CFD 5, where I have the most direct connection as it falls within District 2. Special district staff, including Mr. Miller himself, are regular attendees for their neighborhood council meeting and have been incredibly collaborative with neighborhood council folks there to have a real hands-on look at their budget and where their priorities are and how that aligns with what's being proposed for the upcoming fiscal year's budget. So just want to say thank you to you and your team for that work.
Councilman Basso, we are on item D1, the CFDs for item 1 through 9. Any questions on this item? None at all. Michael?
Yeah, I just want, good evening, Michael Wolf, Director of Public Works. I just wanted to add something because we've heard this recently last month, I think it was, or 2 months ago from the dais or from the podium. There are some of the districts that feel like they want to be more involved in that process. And so I would agree with Anthony that we do as best as we can to be collaborative. But I think that we've heard recently that there's opportunity for us to reach out to those groups, get a little different type of input, because I think some of them maybe disagree with some of the things that we are recommending. So I just wanted to put that out there because we've heard that just recently.
And some CFD's members are a little bit more concerned than others, for lack of a better word. Is that correct, Mr. Miller?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are varying levels of engagement, I would say, across all of the CFDs. There are some that are more active than others. And I think there's different levels, like what Mr. Wolf said, there's different levels of input that people are looking to have in the creation of this process. And I think it really speaks to the fact that we need to treat each one individually, and we approach each community differently.
Thank you, sir. Motion on this item?
I will move to send all of these items forward to full council for consideration.
I will second.
Second, we got a first from Councilor Turan, second by Councilman Basua. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Our next item, item number 2, Public Works Department fiscal year 24-25, resolution to levy assessments in the Waterways Maintenance District. Recommendation, the Finance Governance Committee recommended the City Council, acting as a legislative body for the Waterways Maintenance District, number 1, hold a public hearing regarding the proposed assessment for the Waterway Maintenance District fiscal year 24-25, and to adopt a resolution to levy the special assessment on properties within the Waterways District for District fiscal year 24-25. And this, so there was a review and a measure and a pre-recorded presentation. And we have Mr. Miller again for any questions on this item.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
My apologies. I'd like to also, for the record, announce that Councilmember Basua has joined the meeting as of 5:07 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any concerns on this, Mr. Miller, from our waterways folks?
No specific concerns. There are, I would say, overall concerns within the Waterway District itself regarding the district calculation of fund balances from year over year. There's residents who are concerned with how their money is carried over from year over year. And this district is unique among districts within the city in that it's not formed under the same act as other districts within the city have been. So the governing code is slightly different. So the way we treat, again, like I mentioned with the CFD, the way we treat this district, it's individual. It's based upon their formation documents, their authorized services and improvements, but also at the same time what our governing requirements are. So in this particular case, it's a waterways district. There's a lot of questions regarding water quality and
right,
maintenance and operations there. But these districts' budgets were also created and their assessments were determined in conjunction with discussions with those communities.
Are those the folks also that have that committee that gives a lot of good input? Is that the one?
They're part of the waterway communities, so they are part of the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council Group.
Those, yes, right, yeah.
And the Marine Advisory, I believe, subcommittee. There are a few residents of Mandalay Bay specifically who are involved in that process.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman, any questions on this item? No questions? I'll make a
Excuse
motion
me,
to.
Chair Zaragoza.
Many speakers on this item?
There are no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, on the motion,
I'll move to send this forward to council for consideration.
I will second.
you got a first by Councilman Turan, second by Councilman Basua. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
And Councilman Basua, we have two housing items of 3 and 4. You, housing,
I actually got direction. Sure, put my microphone. I actually did end up getting direction from HUD. As you know, I do serve as the executive director for the Housing Authority of the City of Port Hueneme. So in my role with that and my role here at the council, there are times where we use the same vendors.
got you.
And there has been a conflict of interest in the past using those certain vendors. So what they would like for me to do is to abstain from anything that is vendor related.
Okay,
So that's what I'll be doing.
so
I should be fine with those.
you'll be okay?
I can do policy items. Sorry, Emilio.
Okay, so,
There are no vendors in this item.
There's no vendor. So any vendor related items because of the possibility that I can also use the same vendors.
okay, thank you. Well, with that
When-
explanation, Mr. City Attorney, are we okay with that? Okay, good. So our next item is item 3, Housing Department Investment Policy and Guidelines for Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard. Recommendation, the Finance Governance Committee recommend the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard approve a resolution adopting the investment policy and portfolio guidelines for the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard for fiscal year 24-25. And there was a pre-recorded item per Measure M. And we have Mr. Emilio Ramirez, our Housing Director, for any additional questions. Council members, any questions on this item? From Mr. Emilio, or can you give us just a little information on this guidelines?
Thank you, sir. Emilio Ramirez, Housing Director. The first item, item number 3, is a procedural item. There isn't much to report. It gets adopted every year in a similar way. The next item has some discussion to talk about, but this one is procedural.
Okay, so what's the pleasure on item 3? Any speakers?
Chair Zaragoza, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, so then motion to move by Councilman Basua,
I'll second.
second by Turan. Councilman Turan, please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Our next item is again number 4, and this is the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority Low Rent Public Housing and Housing Choice Voucher Program, Section 8, Budget for Fiscal Year 24-25. Recommendation of the Finance and Governance Committee recommend the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority, City of Oxnard, 1, adopt a resolution approving the recommended $8,042,472 operating budget for the low rent, let me see, public housing program for fiscal year 24-25 is presented for each project area, and approve and authorize the use of $693,999 of unrestricted cash to fund the projected deficit. 2, adopt a resolution approving the recommendation $34,177,979 operating budget for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, Section 8 for fiscal year 24-25, and approve and authorize the use of the $436,417 of unrestricted cash to fund the projected deficit. And then again, we do have a pre-recorded item per Measure M, and we have Mr. Ramirez. Any additional information we need to know?
Thank you, sir. Emilio Ramirez, once again, Housing Director. Couple things. First of all, both of the programs that we are presenting have budget deficits. We have been working on those budget deficits for quite some time and have been making some progress. In the case of the Section 8 program or the Housing Choice Voucher Program, we did make a good amount of progress. And in this year, the budget deficit went back up a little bit. I can explain that, and we'll undertake that. First, the public housing, or what's called the low-rent public housing program, or the public housing program. We are in the midst of an effort that is happening, a trend happening throughout the country, one which public housing authorities call conversion. And the effort of conversion is to try to change the method of funding the administration of the operation of those public housing. Conversion refers to a process by which the apartment complex convert from public housing to affordable housing, similar to a privately held affordable housing, wherein the rent is paid via a Section 8 voucher versus the revenue being made by a subsidy from HUD, given that the HUD subsidy doesn't produce enough to cover the operational needs. If we're able to complete that, then the rent that is paid is then covered by a Section 8 voucher and should be able to cover the operational needs. We are in the midst of doing that right now, and we hope or expect that we will be able to undertake or to close that gap in the next 5 or 10 years. The Section 8 program, we did make some significant progress, and the amount went back up this year the gap went back up this year to $436,000. That is almost entirely attributable to new staff. I felt as though we needed additional staff to undertake the effort that we are working on in the Section 8 program. Manage it better, right size the caseloads, et cetera. We are in the midst of what I'll call a calculated risk. I hope that's the right term.
Is it a good risk?
I think it is.
We're gonna find out.
It's not.
We're gonna find out.
It's not special to the Oxnard Housing Authority. A lot of PHAs throughout the country are
That's the
undertaking
question I
this.
was going to ask. Other people are doing it, have done it.
And I did seek advice from other directors of PHAs that are undertaking this risk. It's a process termed shortfall. Shortfall means that we are overextending our HAP budget. HAP is the housing assistance payment, which is used to pay the landlords for the rent. The administrative budget is attributable to the HAP budget. So the higher the HAP budget, the higher admin fees.
And you require more people for that?
We're able to,
Yeah.
God forbid we actually help somebody, but yeah, we're able to help more people become in housing. So as the HAP budget goes up, the admin budget also goes up. And what the shortfall budget does is that it inflates the HAP budget, in this case intentionally. We are in the midst of doing that right now. It's not really something that HUD sanctions, but it's also not something that they have traditionally stopped. It effectively increases the HAP allocation and therefore increases the admin allocation, largely because there are some housing authorities that are not using their full HAP allocation, so they redistribute, but also because HUD does not want to create or displace persons. They want to create homelessness or displaced persons. So once they're housed, they work to stay housed. In this case, it is starting to work. Not entirely, it hasn't closed the gap, but it's making progress. I can tell you that the HAP allocation has increased from 22 million to 27 million, causing the administrative allocation to increase from 2.5 million to 2.9 million. And if we're able to maintain that trend, I think that we will be able to eventually close that gap despite the added salary expenses that we had to incur in order to make this work. We are in the midst of talking to HUD. It is not a secret. In fact, we have a meeting with HUD next week to overview the shortfall in the program or remedy that they're going to ask us to undertake. But I can tell you that in my discussions with various housing authorities throughout the state and the country, they're telling me that this is their method. This is the way that they structure. And various housing authorities are telling me that they have been under this process for quite some time, and it has effectively closed their gaps. So we are in that calculated risk mode right now. I'm happy to answer any
We have
questions.
Councilor Basu and then Tehran.
Sure.
I'm good, thank you.
You're good? Okay, Councilman Tehran.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Ramirez. I'll just say that I appreciate the explanation on it because it may look on paper that, as you mentioned, overextending or having the budget allocation or receiving a larger budget allocation would be the benefit of this risk, is what it sounds like. If it's stated to be a calculated risk, have we identified what the potential negative outcomes might be from this? Because as you mentioned, it sounds like HUD is well aware of it. It's a practice that's taking place across the state with other jurisdictions. But what are some potential negatives that we would see from this if it's a risk?
Can I say
So-
across the state or across the U.S.?
It's
Excuse me.
across the
Yes.
country.
Okay.
I mean, everything from just discipline, fees, fines, displacement of people. But we don't expect that to occur. And I understand the reservation of being outspoken about this strategy. It is not something that is supposed to happen, but it is also not something that's rare.
Understood, and I appreciate that. There are a couple of similar examples that come to mind in the realm of education where most of my professional life has been, and I'll just say that I appreciate the transparency around this and knowing that it's a practice that's happening with many other jurisdictions. I will say that I do have some discomfort with it, but hearing all the things that you've been transparent about, including HUD's awareness of this and the fact that it appears to be operationally paying off in the way it's anticipated, in the way other jurisdictions have seen, I'm happy to move forward with it, but I just wanted to voice kind of my thoughts on that. So
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Yes. I mean, I can tell you that the alternatives are pretty grim. Reduce the program, staff losses, ask the city council for general fund allocation. I mean, there are other alternatives.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Emilio, is there a timeline for this, a potential risk? Is it a year by year? Is it what are we looking
I
at?
wish that I could tell you. I don't know at this point.
What I'm looking at, if we go 1 year, 2 years, do we see a potential, would it working 100% and we're no longer a potential risk? Am I making any sense there?
I don't know exactly, sir. I wish I could tell you, the trajectory of this idea will go 2 years, 5 years, 10
That's
years.
the
I
question.
don't know. It just depends on a lot of things. I think I will know a lot more by the time it goes to council. But at this point, I'm not able to project. I can tell you that there are a myriad of other PHAs throughout the country that have been doing this for years, 20 years.
So it's not new.
I didn't invent it.
Mr. City Manager?
There could also come a point where HUD just makes a global decision about changing how they do their formulas, right? I mean, that's in the realm of a universal possibility.
So what will happen is that HUD will determine based on a 2-year tool, which Emilio is very aware of. They will determine whether the housing authority is on a shortfall. Then they will recommend the housing authority go to what they call a shortfall team. That shortfall team will put the housing authority in, and it's not a bad thing. It's basically, hey, you're gonna stop leasing, you're gonna stop absorbing, you're gonna stop doing all these things. But the main purpose is, the housing authority has a main purpose, and that's to house. That's what our main purpose is.
That's a goal.
So that's our goal. So HUD is going to do everything in their power to make sure that we are successful housing, but at the same time, they're gonna put some perimeters, in play, as far as, don't be issuing any more vouchers, don't be doing this, don't be doing
It's a
that.
cutoff.
It's a cutoff for us, but eventually, again, HUD is in the business of housing, not making people homelessness. So,
Okay.
I'm comfortable enough to,
So Emilio, you feel
know that.
comfortable with this? Of course, you wouldn't be bringing it if you didn't, but.
I feel comfortable. I have spoken to a variety of other directors, my colleagues, and after having assessed that, I do feel comfortable. I can't assure you that that we're not here by accident. It didn't. I mean, we are considering everything that we're doing.
Thank you. Any speakers, Madam Clerk, virtually or here?
Chair Zaragoza, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
So, council members, what's your pleasure?
Well, I'll move that we send this forward to full council for review and consideration.
Get a first by Councilor Teran
oh, second.
and second by Councilor Basua. Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion carries 3-0.
And thank you. Okay, our next item E, any items for the future agendas?
None at this time, Mayor.
None? So we are adjourned. Thank you.